Hi everyone, thank you for joining me. In the first half of this video we're heading out on location. It's a place that's been quite a favourite of mine, but I haven't been to it for a little while, so it was due for a revisit. In the second half of the video we're back here in the office. We're going to dive into Lightroom and maybe do a little tiny bit of Photoshop as well. I hope you enjoy the video. If you do, please consider subscribing to my channel, unless you're already a subscriber, in which case, of course, thank you very much. So let's head on out on location, where you're going to find me in a not very optimistic mood to start with. Some days it doesn't matter how much you explore, it doesn't matter how creative you try to be. Some days it just doesn't work out. And I've got a feeling today could be one of those days. So this afternoon I headed out to check out a couple of new locations. And I was hoping that one of them would pan out and I would be able to do a sunset shoot there. But as it turns out, neither of them are any good. There's just nothing there worth shooting. So it was a case of, do I just write the afternoon off and go home? Or, as I'm passing it, do I stop off at one of my old regular, what used to be one of my regular locations, though I haven't been here for a while, and that's Amidorio Reservoir. So the reason I thought I'd stop off here was to check out the water level, because we've had a pretty dry winter actually. I mean, it's still only the end of February. In fact, today is the 28th, last day of February. But I was thinking that the water level might have dropped, and as a result it might have revealed some interesting previously hidden features. But actually the water level's higher now than it was the last time I was here, so that plan's kind of gone out the window. But I'm here now and I've got, I don't know, about 45 minutes until actual sunset, although we're going to lose the sun behind the hills probably in about 10 or 15 minutes. So if I'm going to find a shot, it's going to have to be fairly soon. If not, I'm going to go home with nothing. And sometimes that's what happens. Okay, so I was on the verge of giving up and going home, but the conditions are actually really nice. We've got some thin high cloud out in the direction of sunset. The sun's gone behind the nearby hills now, so all the direct light has gone off the scene, but there's a possibility some bottom lighting on that cloud that could light up. It's already got quite a nice little glow to it, and now that the sun's gone down, also the water has flattened out, so we're getting quite nice reflections. It's not a unique shot. I've done very, very similar images to this before, but you never know, the conditions could be just so, and it could just work out to be a really nice shot. So I'm going to hang around and take it anyway. My initial thought was to put the tripod lower down, which I often do when I'm shooting reflections, but if I do that, then these little sort of dead twigs, reeds, whatever they are in the foreground, are sticking up too high. They're sticking up right the way through the reflections and into the actual landscape beyond, and I didn't want that. So I've actually lifted the tripod up higher, I want the camera up higher. I've put the centre line of the reflections through the middle of the frame, and I quite often do that with reflection shots. I just like the way it looks, particularly when there's nothing much else going on. There's not a strong foreground element, but there is the colours and reflections and those little dead twigs coming through. So I just looked around at the dam here, And now that the water has settled, it's reflecting nicely. The hills over the background are reflecting nicely. And I kind of think it makes for an interesting image. So I've set up a composition. So the dam, because of perspective, slopes from the top left down into towards the centre of the frame. And of course its reflection slopes up. The hill slopes down towards the centre of the frame and its reflection slopes up. So we've got quite a nice symmetry there. And there's some sort of interesting little cloud patterns around it, and it just looks quite nice. Okay, so we are officially now past sunset. And it looks like most of that thin cloud is disappearing, so I'm not sure we're going to get anything extra, but at the moment there's kind of a nice, it's a very tranquil feel. And also there were some people around earlier walking around shouting and playing music, and they've gone now and the place has become very much more peaceful. The water's just flattened out. So that was it for the evening. I headed home and it's now the next day and it's time to process the images. And as you saw there, I took 2. So let's dive into Lightroom and have a little look and see what we got and what we're going to do with them. Okay, so here are my 2 images in Lightroom. So this is the first image. As you can see, this was shot at 35mm. F11 1/40th of a second at ISO 64, and all I've done to it, if we look down here, imported it, and I've done the basic lens corrections, so enabled my profile corrections and removed chromatic aberration. And this was the second image of the dam, and you can see this was 20mm f11 1/6 of a second, and again just the basic lens corrections have been done. And what I'm going to do is start with this image and then go back and do the other one. So let's start off with this image. So we've done the lens corrections, so I think what we'll do is we'll jump straight into the basics. Now the image is a bit dark, so what I'm going to do is just bring the exposure up a bit. Probably about there. I'm going to bring the highlights down probably quite a bit. Sort of around about there. And then I'm going to bring the shadows up a bit further. Yeah, about there. I'm going to check my whites and my blacks. I can see I've still got a good histogram, but let's see how far I can push the whites across. Okay, so at that point I'm actually starting to get some blown whites over here, but I'm going to deal with that in a minute. I'm going to leave it there. And then the blacks, I think the blacks don't need anything more doing to them. I shall pop in a bit of vibrance, probably to about there, I think. And just a touch of saturation. The sky is quite a lot brighter than the foreground, which you kind of expect, but I just want to balance it a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is put in a graduated filter. Let's take the effect out. And then I think I'll just drop that in. Probably about there. And I'm going to darken that sky quite a bit. Probably bring it back somewhere around about there, I think. But I'm also going to just counteract the darkening in this section here by bringing the shadows up. About there. Then I'm going to put in a new filter, put it in kind of in the bottom here, and I'm just going to lift the exposure a fraction in the bottom just to make it pop a little bit more. Yeah. I'm going to warm the highlights up a bit using split toning. So all I'm going to do is pop in a little bit of red into the highlights just to warm it up, kind of about there, maybe a fraction more, yeah, about there. I'm going to just correct some of this lean here, the sort of wide angle distortion that I've got, so I'm going to go into transform, guided. Now I know that my camera was level, so I'm going to draw a line right the way across the bottom here as my first guide, and then my second one I'm going to draw basically down there, and that's corrected that upright quite nicely. Into detail, sharpening is at the default of 40, which is where I'll leave it. I'm going to hold down the Alt key, Option key on a PC, and just drag the masking across so that the sharpening isn't affecting areas that don't need to be sharpened. And I think probably something like about that will do. And that image is now done. Okay, so let's get back to my original image here. And again, I've already done the lens corrections, so let's go into the basics. And again, the image is pretty dark, so I'm going to boost the exposure a bit. Probably about there, I think. I'm going to bring the highlights back probably quite a way, just to bring some texture back into the sky and the colours. And then I'm going to bring the shadows up probably quite a way, because I want to bring back detail in the scene that's kind of lost in the shadows at the minute. Probably about there. Again, I'm going to do my white point, hold down the Alt key, Option key on a PC, drag my white point up to see how far I can take it, and I think put it back. Yeah, probably about there. And then also do the same with my black point, see where it starts to clip. There's quite a lot of possibility there, but I don't think I want to put too much in there, so probably somewhere around about there I think looks nice. Now again, we've got quite a bright sky compared to the foreground, so I'm going to go for my graduated filter, and I'm going to drop that in probably somewhere around about there, I think. And I'm going to bring the exposure down about there, and then bring my shadows up a bit just to counteract the fact that I've darkened the scene. Yeah, about there. And then put a new one in, and I'm going to do the bottom here, probably like that, and just bring the exposure up just a little bit, probably about there. Yeah, that looks good. Again, I'm going to warm the highlights up a little bit with the split toning. And I'm just leaving it on red and just dial in a little bit just to make it a bit warmer. Probably about there, I think. I think that sky's still looking a bit bright, so I'm going to just pull that exposure back a little bit more on the sky. And I'm actually going to dial in a little tiny bit more saturation on the sky just to make the blues stand out a bit more. Adds a bit of contrast there. And just push the shadows up a fraction more. Yeah, that's better. So I'm going to sharpen the image as normal, so I'll leave it on 40 and just hold down the Alt or the Option key and dial it in until I see I've got sharpening where I want it. So the white bits are being sharpened, the black bits aren't. So about there. And then the only other thing that's a bit of an issue for me here is I'm just finding a few of the elements right in the foreground here a little bit of a distraction. So I'm going to pop this into Photoshop and just see if I can clean them out quickly and easily. So let's do that now. Photo, edit in Photoshop CC. So here's my image in Photoshop. So I'm going to create a duplicate layer. So that's Command J or Control J on a PC, creates a duplicate layer, so I'm not working on the original. And I'm going to try to do this just using the basically the spot healing brush, because it's only very small items. So I'm going to zoom in to 100%, and then I'm going to come down right into my foreground here. And it's only just these few little bits here, so just painting in with the spot healing brush will probably get rid of them quite nicely. Might just be a little bit of extra cleaning up to be done. That one can go. This is okay. This bit here is a bit messy. Could probably do this using the clone tool, content aware fill, but when it's just small things like this, quite often it's just as easy to take it out just using the spot healing brush. Let's have a quick look. That all looks nice and clean. You can't tell that I've taken anything out there, I don't think. And that looks a lot better. So I can flatten my image. Close it and save it. And that one is now done. So that's it, that's my editing, and here, with a little bit of music, the final images. So as I said at the beginning, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, don't forget about the subscribe and notification buttons. Likes and shares are always very much appreciated, and I'd love to hear from you. Comments down below, let me know what you think about the images, the video, my post-processing techniques. Ask me a question, give me a suggestion for something you'd like to see. All of the above if you like. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch, so thank you very much, and until the next video. Bye.